Hey guys, Miss Scott here, getting ready for week 5. Can you believe it? Week 5. I know I can't. Hope everyone's enjoying their Labor Day weekend. I know I'm trying to, but I'm still definitely getting a lot of work done too. Yeah, hopefully you guys aren't doing any work. Hopefully you're just hanging out at the house, enjoying yourself, getting some rest, resting your brain, getting ready for week 5. All right, I know sometimes when we return from a long weekend, our brains are not quite back on school yet. Let's try to avoid that this week. Let's hit up Monday strong, ready to learn some more about cells and organelles. So last week we started our unit on cells, and we started off with prokaryotic versus eukaryotic cells, and we learned tricks to remember what those two different major cell types are. Prokaryotic, pro no what? Pro no nucleus, pro no what? Pro no nucleus, pro no what? Pro no nucleus. Guess what, guys? Prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus. Prononucleus. That's right. And along with not having a nucleus, they don't have other membrane-bound organelles, meaning they look kind of empty inside. You will see like some, it almost looks like silly string sprayed in there in the center, just floating around. That is actually DNA, because all living things have DNA. So our prokaryotic cells, which by the way are unicellular organisms, so they're only made of one cell, very simple. But they have to have that DNA, because we know from our characteristics of living things that all living things have genetic material, aka DNA or RNA, but aka DNA. That's the easiest way to remember it. So yeah, those prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus, which would normally house the DNA. So their DNA floats around inside their little simple bodies, looking like some silly string. To me, that's what it looks like anyway. They also have ribosomes inside of them. Very cool, make proteins. They have a cell membrane because that's what holds the cell together. They have a cell wall because they're so simple and they're single-celled, meaning they're made of only one cell. It's the same thing as unicellular, that they need that extra protection. Some of them have that little flagella, right? The little tail on the end, looks like a rat tail to me, but that helps them move around, kind of push forward along their way, their journey in life. But that's prokaryotic cells. Pro no nucleus. Pro no what? Prononucleus. Very good. All right. So then on the other side of things, we have eukaryotic cells. Normally, when everyone's in school, we're not all masked up and we're able to be close to each other. So like any other year but this year, when I teach about prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, when it comes to eukaryotic cells, I start going around the room and I do kind of like a Oprah Winfrey, where you gotta, right? So she's always giving away stuff because she's awesome and she has the money to do so. But anyways, with eukaryotic cells, it sounds like you in the beginning, like you, sorry, through my magical face, you. Even though it starts with an EU, it sounds like you. So you and you and you and you and you and you and you are made of eukaryotic cells. All animals are made of eukaryotic cells. I usually also have a plant in my classroom, or the Tower Garden, which you may have seen in your 7th grade classroom rooms, other than mine, if you're Miss Guthrie's kids, because I'm posting that there too, there too. But yeah, so because of what this year is, and we never know when things can go wrong and we have to maybe go back home, I didn't want to have any plants in the classroom just yet. But normally I would. And so when I'm doing my you and you and you and you and you are made of eukaryotic cells, I also include my plant, because plant cells are also eukaryotic cells. Eukaryotes are mostly multicellular organisms, meaning they're made from more than one cell. So two or more cells, right? Usually lots more. If we think about what we heard about humans, humans are made of 100 trillion cells. That's not that many, right? No way. 100 trillion. Oof. Nothing. 100 trillion. That's a lot. Blows my mind every time I think about it. But then again, I look at myself and I'm like, yeah, okay, 100 trillion, that's probably, the lower end. Anyway, back to cells. So plant cells, animal cells, those are all eukaryotic cells. Fungi are eukaryotic. And then there are protists. Protists, even though they are only made of one cell, sorry about my magic head again, they are eukaryotic. So they have a nucleus and they have membrane-bound organelles, even though they are only made of one cell. So protists are kind of that exception to the rule. They are eukaryotic, but they're still single-celled, unicellular. Got it? All right, so our two major groups are prokaryotic and eukaryotic. I like to practice saying those names because when I first heard them, well, when I was relearning this to teach, it's like prokaryotic, eukaryotic. My mouth does not want to say those words. My magic mouth does not want to say those words. But yeah, just practice it. I heard some guy, I think on Khan Academy video, saying it, and he was saying it in such a funny way that it just stuck with me. Prokaryotic, eukaryotic. So I just keep saying it like that over and over and over and over again in my head until it stuck. And then now, that's the way I say it in class to you guys. Prokaryotic, eukaryotic. Prono what? Prononucleus. Prono what? Prononucleus. What are eukaryotic cells? Well, they are you and you and you and you and you and you and you. I thought maybe I had a plant over here, but I don't right now. Also plants, fungi like mushrooms, and protists are single-celled, unicellular, eukaryotic friends. All right? Where's that DNA inside of a prokaryotic cell if they have no nucleus? Well, it's just floating around in there, baby. Just all hanging out inside the cell. Like silly string. Where's the DNA in a eukaryotic cell? Well, if DNA is the instructions that build us, it makes the most sense for it to be inside the nucleus, because the nucleus controls everything the cell does. Think about it. If you're in charge of everything, don't you need the instructions? Makes sense to me. All right, so in our eukaryotic cells, the nucleus holds the DNA because it's in charge and it needs the instructions, period. Cool? Cool. All right, we learned about some other organelles, right? Hopefully. Mitochondria, mighty mitochondria. They are the powerhouse of the cell because they take the nutrients that come into the cell or are created by the cell in the case of the plant cells, and they convert them into energy. They take the nutrient, glucose, which is sugar, plus oxygen. You put it together. Oh, my head's getting in the way again. They put it together and they turn it into ATP, which I'm not going to tell you what ATP stands for because, quite frankly, I can't pronounce it right now. Yeah, or ever, maybe. ATP equals energy. Just remember that and you'll be good to go. Okay? All right, so that mitochondria, it takes the nutrients, the glucose, the sugar, all these different words you might hear for it. It adds a little oxygen, right? And then it produces ATP, energy. That ATP, the energy, is used by the cell to do literally everything the cell does, including making energy. Like humans, we need energy to do literally everything. All living things do. We can't even sleep without energy. We can't breathe without energy. We need energy. And in order to have energy, we need nutrients of some sort. Whether we go out and get that nutrients or whether we make those nutrients. Who knows what I'm talking about? Going out and getting nutrients. Those are our heterotrophs, our humans, our animals. Making your own nutrients, those are our autotrophs. They automatically make it because they can't just get up and go and find it. Those are our plants. All right, stay with me. I'm trying to keep it interesting. Don't look at me like that. All right, so autotrophs, heterotrophs, both have to have energy, okay? Because one's making their own nutrients. You got to have energy for that. And one's got to go out and find it or bring it in. You got to have energy for that. So they both need mitochondria. Make sense? Because mitochondria is where what happens? ATP, aka energy, is made with a little glucose and a little oxygen. Getting ready to dance, maybe rap. Who knows? Anything can happen on these weekend shows. All right, let's move on. Got the nucleus. We got the mitochondria. What about the cell membrane? Cell membrane. So when you're drawing a model of a cell, that's like that outer circle or outer square that you draw or outer shape. And it seems like not that important, but it's like super important, okay? It holds the cell together, but it also controls what comes into the cell and what goes out of the cell. So it's like a security guard. It's like, ooh, bad stuff, you stay out. Bah. And good stuff, oh, good stuff, come on in, come on in, come on in. Or like, you know, when there's some waste made in the cell, because it's a living thing, so it does create waste, right? Waste meaning like, I just refer to it as caca, because, I mean, waste, trash, stuff it doesn't need anymore, stuff that can poison it if it stays inside of it. So, the cell membrane also helps get that out of the cell. It's like, ooh, you are gonna be bad for us, get out, boop, 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 boop. It takes more than that. It's not like boop, 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 boop. But there's like protein channels it can go through, or it can go enter and exit through osmosis and diffusion. Like there's all sorts of crazy things you're gonna learn about. I'm excited for you because we put on a good show with some of these. So just hang on tight because you're about to see some cool stuff down the road. Right now, these words sound like gibberish, but just remember, the cell membrane, even though it just looks like the outer edge of the cell, it controls what comes into and exits the cell. So super, super important. All right, if you are a plant cell or a bacteria cell, which are prokaryotic, forgot to mention that earlier. Prokaryotic cells are our bacteria and archaea bacteria. archaea bacteria, and they deserve this distinction because they're pretty awesome. They live in extreme environments. They're bacteria that live in like hardcore extreme environments, like inside volcanoes. So prokaryotic cells are bacteria and archaea bacteria. All right. Then you've got your eukaryotic cells, which we're talking about now with our organelles, which is like literally, just about literally everything else. Humans, animals, you know, humans are animals. Most of y'all don't seem to know that, but we are. We are animals. Plants, fungus, and protist, which are our only unicellular eukaryotic cells. Prono what? Are you saying it? I can't hear you because this is recorded. Prononucleus, that's right. All right. And what are eukaryotic cells? Well, they are you and you and you and you and you and you and you, right? Point to a plant if you see one. Point to a human if you see one. Point to your dog if you see one. Cat, a rat, a bat. Not a hat, because that's not a living thing. All right, moving right along. So we had our nucleus. We had our mitochondria. So the nucleus controlling the cell contains the DNA. The mitochondria making that ATP, which is our energy. So we call it the powerhouse because it's kind of like Georgia Power, right? They give us electricity. They give us energy, right? So the powerhouse. Then you have the cell membrane, which is like that security guard. It's not just the outer part of the cell, although it is for some of our eukaryotic cells, but it also controls what comes into and exits the cell, which is super important. You don't want bad things to come in. If there's waste inside the cell, you definitely want that to get out. And you definitely need to bring some good stuff in, like nutrients. So, super important. Then we have our cell wall, which is only on plant cells and our bacteria, prokaryotic cells. The cell wall, we'll talk about it in terms of the plant cell, is there for structure. Think about animals, specifically humans. Halloween's getting ready to come up kind of soonish. And I saw at Dollar Tree today a lot of skeleton decorations. Skeletons are inside each of us. They help us to stand up straight, right? Well, more than stand up straight. They help us do everything our body does. Like literally everything I'm doing right now is because of my skeleton and some other organ systems, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, our skeleton keeps us upright. If I didn't have a skeleton, try to picture that. Try to picture yourself without a skeleton. What does that look like? All your tissues and organs just in a puddle on the floor. Ugh, that's gross, right? So the skeleton's pretty important. Well, plants, they don't have a skeleton. So they need something to help give them structure, to be upright, to kind of support them, right? And that's where their cells and their cell walls come into play. So those cell walls and the fact that their cells are so tightly packed together, and you're going to see some of that this week, is what helps those plants be able to be upright instead of just a pile of mush on the ground. All right? So cell wall only in plants when it comes to eukaryotic cells, plant cells. They are on bacteria cells, prokaryotic cells, but they're made of different materials. But, ooh, you just saw my real face. Ooh. But in terms of eukaryotic cells, animals don't have a cell wall. Animal cells don't have a cell wall. We don't need it. because we have skeletons that do the work that the cell wall's kind of helping to provide. But the plants, they need the cell wall. So their cells, plant cells, have cell walls to help give them that structure, that rigid support, okay? All right, while we're on the topic of things that plant cells have that animal cells don't, our next organelle, which means tiny organ, by the way. You know what organ means, right? I'm not talking about the musical instrument you see at church. I mean like your heart and your stomach. Those are organs. Well, cells, being the tiny living things that they are, have tiny organs that we call organelles. And those are all the things we're talking about. The nucleus, the mitochondria, the cell membrane, the cell wall, all organelles. All right, so the next organelle that plant cells have that animal cells do not are chloroplast. Everybody say that with me. Chloroplast. Like Clorox, which no one can find anymore, right? Thank you, COVID. Chloroplast. Chloroplast. We'll say it slow. Chloroplast. Chloroplast. Let's speed it up. Chloroplast. 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 There you go. Chloroplast. Those are only found in strike that. They are only found in plant cells. So the cell wall is in plant cells, but not animal cells. Chloroplast are in plant cells, but not animal cells. Chloroplast are how plant cells create food. Has anyone ever seen a plant, flower, tree, piece of grass, get up and walk to go find food? If you're doing anything except this or saying no, I'm worried about you. They can't do that, guys. They can't go find food for themselves. But they're a living thing, so they need nutrients to create energy to live. So they have chloroplast in their cells. Chloroplast are filled with a chemical or a substance called chlorophyll. That's where they get their name. This substance is green. So chloroplast have a green color. And also, the greener parts of the plants, like the leaves and the stem, usually have more chloroplast in them. That's why they're so green, is because of the chlorophyll in the chloroplast. So that may come up on a test, but the main thing you need to know is that chloroplast are not in animal cells. They are only in plant cells. And their job, their function, is to create nutrients for the plant cells. And by nutrients, I mean glucose, which again is sugar. All right, now how do they create it? Where are they creating it from? Well, there's this magical little process, and I'm being kind of serious when I say magic, because science is kind of magic, guys. Photosynthesis. 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 Magic head in the way again. You take a photo. I'm sorry, I should be with a phone, right? Selfie. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. Yes, that is the process by which plant cells are able to create glucose, which is the nutrient for the plant cell, out of sunlight and carbon dioxide and water. So the sunlight comes in, sunlight, and then the chloroplast is like basking in it, sunbathing, right? Ooh, soaking up the rays. And then they take that sunlight, they add in carbon dioxide, which, by the way, guys, is something that humans exhale. So that's something that we let out of our bodies and that plants take in and use. And this is part of how they use it. So they take in the chloroplast, which are green from the chlorophyll. They're bathing in the sunlight, basking in it, sunbathing, whatever you want to call it. They're soaking up the rays. And they're taking that sunshine and they're adding the carbon dioxide and they're adding some H2O, water, and they're creating glucose. All right? And this glucose is the nutrient for the plant cell. Now, the glucose is not energy. It's just like the nutrient. So now we got to take the nutrient and we have to turn it into energy. So where does that happen at? Where do we do that? We've already talked about it. What turns things into energy? Do you know? Do you? You should, because I already said it. The mitochondria. So you have your chloroplast, bathing in sunlight, taking it in, adding the other ingredients, right? Creating the glucose. Now they have the nutrient. Yay! But something else has to turn it into the energy they need. So, plus they just got really tired using all that energy to do photosynthesis. So, we definitely need to take this glucose we made and turn it into some ATP, energy. So they kick the glucose. I say kick because most of you like soccer, right? So they kick it over to the mitochondria. Mitochondria says, no problem, I got this. Give me that glucose. Takes the glucose, some oxygen, puts them together in a process called cellular respiration. You'll learn that later too, but cellular respiration is what this whole process is called, where the mitochondria turns the glucose and the oxygen into ATP energy. Yeah, I'll let Ms. Guthrie hopefully tell you more about that if you're in Ms. Guthrie's class. My students, just calm down, we'll get there. All right, so anyway, mitochondria says, no problem, thank you for the glucose. Now I can do my job, which is to turn this into ATP energy. It does its job, and now the cell has more energy to use to do more things, like make more nutrients, which is only one of the many things the cell has to do, by the way. Because cells have to do things like reproduce and get rid of waste and things like that. So all that takes energy, because everything takes energy. Sorry, there's a fly around here and it's bothering me. But I'm like, hello, fly. Oh, you saw my face again. That fly is made of cells, and now I'm wondering how many cells that fly is made of. And I kind of want to stop this video and Google that right now, but I won't. I will wait. See, that's what I don't get about you guys. I'm going to go on a rant for a minute, very short rant. You guys have, most of you have phones, or your friends have phones, or your parents have phones. So when you have a question about something, like, you literally have the answer right in your hand. Anything you can think of. Now, don't cheat on your tests and stuff, but if I'm like, oh, how does the mitochondria turn glucose into energy? How does that happen? I can just Google it. And yet, y'all don't. Not most of you. But I encourage you, when you get curious about random things, if you have a moment, look them up, because it will become a habit. And then when it's stuff that's educational, that habit will kick in and it will really help you with like your studying and such. So like me wondering about the fly, no one's gonna test me on that later, but I really wanna know. So when I'm finished with this video, I'm going to look it up, and I'll probably attach the answer to the bottom of the post of the video, just so you know too. But yeah, that's what I do. Like, I have a computer in my pocket every single day. Now, it's not always the right time to pull it out and look things up, but I'll make a mental note and I'll check later. So just from me to you, a little advice on how to make a good habit on researching. Now, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Make sure it is a reputable, that means a legit to quit source, okay? Not everything is real out there. Be smart. All right, you see my face twice, but we gotta keep going. All right, we have had the nucleus. We have had nucleus controls the cell, holds the DNA because it needs instructions to do that. Then we've had the mitochondria, which takes the nutrients and turns them into ATP energy for the cell. It is our powerhouse. Then we have had our cell membrane, which lets things enter and exit the cell. We had things that are different between plant and animal cells, like our plant cells have cell walls to give them that rigid structure to help them stay upright, because they don't have skeletons. And without skeletons, animals would be mush. And without tightly packed cells and cell walls, plants would be mush. So yeah, we don't want that. All right, the other difference we talked about between plant and animal cells were chloroplasts, which are super important. They bathe in the sunlight. They take the sunlight, they add some other ingredients, carbon dioxide, water, and they turn that into glucose, sugar. And then they send that sugar over to the mitochondria, because all the chloroplast does is make the nutrient. Now somebody else, something else, has to do something with it to turn it to energy, and that's the mitochondria. No problem, I'm the powerhouse, I got this. That's the mitochondria. He's very cocky. All right, so the last difference between plant and animal cells that we talk about are the sizes of their vacuoles. Vacuoles, they're like storage containers or storage balloons, which, because they kind of look more like balloons, but they're for storage. They hold things like water, food, and waste. And again, Miss Scott's word for waste is caca, just because y'all tend to understand that. It means, stuff we don't want, right? Yuck. Needs to get gone. Needs to get out of the cell so the cell doesn't get poisoned and die. So vacuoles will hold water, food, and waste, but mostly water. Mostly water. Now, think about plants. Think about what we talked about with plants before, that we've never seen them get up and walk around and go look for food. Well, the same is true about water. They can't get up and go look for water. So what happens when it doesn't rain for a long time? I mean, yeah, we've seen plants die from that, but there are some that hang on for a while. How? I'm about to tell you. It's because of their vacuole. They have a huge vacuole. Again, plants need a huge vacuole. That's that storage container, which is filled with water, nutrients. Water, nutrients, and waste, caca. But mostly water. Mostly agua is in the vacuole. Plants need lots of water, mucho agua for plante. So they have a grande vacuole. Uno grande vacuole for our plant cells. All right? Because it doesn't rain every day, and they need that water to live. So, uno grande vacuole por the cell plante. I'm saying that wrong, but you get the picture. Now, animals, we need storage places too, animal cells. So, we still have vacuoles. In fact, we usually have multiple vacuoles, like a couple, maybe more than that. But they're very small compared to the plant cell. So the three differences between plant cells and animal cells. Plant cells have cell walls to give them structure. Plant cells have chloroplast to create nutrients for them through photosynthesis. That's sunlight and turning it into glucose. All right? And they have uno grande vacuole, one large vacuole to hold all that water and nutrients and caca, but mostly water. Animal cells, they do not have a cell wall. Animal cells, they do not have chloroplasts. They don't need them. But they do need vacuoles, and they have multiple small vacuoles. All right. Other organelles that both have lysosomes. Lysosomes are kind of like a stomach. They break down, digest things. They have special enzymes inside of them that break down stuff that they take into them. So if you have anything that needs to be broken down into smaller bits, it goes through the lysosome to be digested, kind of like in your stomach, right? Yeah, it also deals with parts of the cell that may die off, and it digests those parts, breaks them down. All right. You also have the endoplasmic reticulum. That's that big, like tunnel-looking thing that's kind of usually surrounds the nucleus, and that's for. It's kind of what it looks like it's for. It's like a hallway, sending things through the cell. So, like a highway or a hallway, it's a pathway for things to get from the nucleus out through the cell, whatever. All right. We have Golgi apparatus. That's sort of like the post office where things get packaged. You have ribosomes. Those make proteins. They're very teeny tiny. And there's usually a lot of them in the cell. There's some inside the nucleus. There's some on part of the endoplasmic reticulum. Because there's two parts to the endoplasmic reticulum, which we often refer to as ER, endoplasmic reticulum, ER. So we have smooth and rough ER. Smooth, no ribosomes. Rough, mucho ribosomes. That's why it's rough. It's got all those little bumpy ribosomes on it. All right? We also have cytoplasm. Cytoplasm, it's hard to think of as an organelle, but it's like the goo, the gel that fills the interior of the cell. It's what holds all the other organelles in place. All right? It's what things travel through. So if you have nutrients coming into the cell, they pass through the cell membrane. They're like, okay, come on in. It comes in and it floats through the cytoplasm to go to its next destination, whatever organelle that may be. All right? Trying to think if I missed anything. If I did, I'll hit you up later because this is a long video already. But I wanted to remind you about all the stuff we talked about last week. Because if you missed a day, you missed a lot, right? No worries though, because we're staying on the same AKS this coming week. I know Miss Guthrie's kids, you guys have been without Miss Guthrie for a bit now. I would like to say she's coming back this week. I don't know. I don't think she is, but I'm here for you, okay? You saw my face a couple of times in this video. Hopefully you know what I look like. You can catch me in the hallway if you need to. You can email me. I'm here to answer any questions you have and help in any way that I can. I'll be posting daily videos, posting your assignments. You should have someone in the classroom with you at each and every day to help guide you with those assignments. If there's any problems, just reach out because I am more than happy to help. Yeah, I'll do the best I can, okay? For my kids, I love y'all. We're gonna have a great, great week, all right? We're gonna keep rocking on with these cell organelles. Hopefully you learned a lot from this 41 now minute video. Crazy. If you even bothered to watch it. If not, you know, oh well. I reminded myself of all the organelles and that's still good too. All right. Oh, by the way, my kids, I went to Dollar Tree today because I wanted to add some more treats to my treat drawer. Not candy, but you know, those little toys I have in there for good behavior and stuff. But I also checked out the headphones because I was like, well, some kids don't have headphones. Let me just buy a bunch of headphones and help everybody out. Well, I did discover that back in the day, they had headphones with mics on them for $1. Now, see the fly? Now, their headphones don't have mics. So I'm so sorry. That's the direction I pointed you for cheap headphones. If you don't have headphones, I did buy 10 pair, even though they didn't have a mic, just because something is better than nothing sometimes, and we'll work with what we have. Okay, so if you need a pair of headphones, they're Dollar Tree, so they're not that exciting, so don't come lying to me if you already have some at home. But if you truly don't have anything, I will give those to you. They're yours to keep. And then later on, if your parents can get out there and get you a pair, it doesn't have to be a great pair. In fact, some of the fancy pairs are actually causing like alien noises, interference with the intercom in the room. So, you know, I don't want those. Yeah, get yourself some cheap headphones, earbuds that have a cord that also have a microphone whenever you can, okay? I know times are tough right now. Until then, we will do the best we can. Man, we're family. We got this. We'll stick together, okay? Miss Scott just can't afford to go buy, even spend $5 for every person for headphones. That's just too much. But $1, 10 pair, $10, you know, I can do that. And we'll make do until then, okay? All right, I hope everyone's having that great weekend that I talked about earlier. Yeah, take care, be safe,